Have you ever prayed with all your heart and heard absolutely nothing? No answer, no sign, no miracle, just silence. And the longer that silence lasts, the louder one question becomes. God, where are you? What if I told you that some of the greatest miracles in the Bible happened after God seemed silent? And what if his silence isn't evidence that he's abandoned you, but evidence that he's preparing you? Stay with me, because by the end of this video you'll understand one truth that changes how you see every unanswered prayer. Most people believe that if God is close, they'll always feel him. But the Bible tells a different story. Abraham waited years for God's promise. Joseph spent years in slavery and prison before becoming ruler in Egypt. David was anointed king, yet spent years hiding in caves. Even John the Baptist, who prepared the way for Jesus, reached a point where he questioned everything. Notice the pattern. God often works in seasons where he seems silent. Why? That's where almost everyone misunderstands him. The first reason God goes silent is because faith grows in silence, not in certainty. If God answered every prayer immediately, if every decision came with a voice from heaven, if every problem disappeared overnight, you wouldn't need faith. You would only need sight. The Bible says, we walk by faith, not by sight. Faith isn't trusting God after you've seen the answer. Faith is trusting him while heaven seems quiet. But that's only the beginning. There's another reason God becomes silent, and it's even harder to accept. Before I reveal that reason, if this message is speaking to you, stay with me. The next reason is the one that completely changed how I understood unanswered prayers, and I believe it could change your perspective too. Sometimes God is preparing you before he prepares your blessing. Think about Joseph. He dreamed of greatness as a teenager, but God didn't immediately place him on a throne. Instead, he experienced betrayal, slavery, false accusations, prison. To Joseph, it probably looked like God had forgotten him. But every painful season was shaping the man who could eventually lead a nation. Here's the question. If God had answered Joseph's dream immediately, would Joseph have been ready? Sometimes the blessing isn't delayed because God is slow. Sometimes it's delayed because he's still preparing the person who will receive it. And there's one more reason for God's silence that many Christians never consider. Sometimes God's silence reveals what our hearts truly trust. When prayers are answered quickly, it's easy to follow God. But what happens when nothing changes? Do we keep praying? Do we keep obeying? Do we still trust him? Or do we walk away? Silence has a way of exposing whether we love God's presence or simply his gifts. That's a difficult truth, but it's one that transforms our relationship with him. If you're in a season where heaven feels silent, don't assume God has left you. The silence Abraham experienced wasn't rejection. The silence Joseph experienced wasn't abandonment. The silence David experienced wasn't failure. In each case, God was working behind the scenes long before anyone else could see it. The same may be true for you. You might not understand what he's doing today, but one day you'll look back and realize God wasn't absent. He was preparing a future you couldn't yet imagine. Sometimes God's greatest work happens where human eyes cannot see. If you've been walking through a season of God's silence, write, "I still trust you, Lord," in the comments. I read them, I pray over them, and I know your words will encourage someone else who's waiting on God today. So before you give up, before you stop praying, before you decide that God has forgotten you, remember this: silence is not always God's refusal. Sometimes it's his preparation. And here's something most believers never realize. There is one mistake people make during God's silence that can actually keep them stuck in that season longer than necessary. That's what we'll uncover in the next video. If you're serious about strengthening your faith with biblical messages that challenge, encourage, and keep you spiritually awake, subscribe to Final Warning and join us every week. Now don't stop here. Watch the next video on our channel, where we'll uncover the one mistake believers make during God's silence that keeps them stuck far longer than necessary. Connects perfectly with what you've learned today. This isn't just another Christian channel. It's a call to stay awake, stay faithful, and stay ready until the next warning.